In a world filled with intergalactic space battles, metahuman destruction on a global scale, and psychopathic serial hauntings, there's only one team who can make sense of it all. When your world is overrun with rampant pop culture, call Loop and Larry, Guardians of Geek.
Woo! There's the explosion once again, 2023, and we are ready to go for another year. And we're going to be doing our 2022 year in review. I am Loop,
and I'm Larry,
and this is Guardians of Geek. And once again, this is our fifth year in review show.
I'm still surprised that we made it past year one. So whenever we talk about this is our fifth of anything, it still blows me away.
I know, it's crazy.
We can't start a new year without the dream team coming together to talk about the year past. So once again, we've got Neil Temple and we've got Backstage Ben from Virgin Radio, who are the geekiest people we know, who know everything there is to know about pop culture. And we can't start a new year without the experts in the field. So
That's
once
right.
again, they're here to join us and impart their pop culture wisdom upon us.
The geekiest people you know is a compliment only coming from you two. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it'd be offensive from pretty much anybody else.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Depends on how you say it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Always a pleasure. This is like my third or fourth time doing this with you three gents. So yeah. Looking forward to 2023 and looking forward to the hits and misses of last year.
Oh, yeah.
Have you two felt any pressure of like watching stuff in the past year to try to keep up on everything?
Oh my God, it's impossible. There's so much. I can't even keep up with all the actual streamers that are out there now, and they all have dozens and dozens of things.
Yeah.
So it's been tough for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been quite a year. There's like just in general, there's a lot has come out this year. So this should be a fun show. And so what we're going to do, we're going to look at the hits and misses. Of course, in movies and television, we've got an open category, which can be pretty much anything, including themes and anything else you want to throw in there. And then we have things that we're going to look forward to in 2023. And at the end of each category, we'll just have an honorable mention so we can just kind of chuck in other things that no one had mentioned yet that we think should be mentioned from that year. So let's just get right down to it. We're going to start with TV shows, and we're going to start with the hits. And let's go, Neil. What do you got for TV shows this year? What's your favorite TV show of the year? And these, of course, before we start, these hits and misses don't necessarily have to be the best or worst, but it could be something that you were just disappointed in, and it's a miss for you or a hit. So let's go with the hits, and we'll go with you, starting with you, Neil.
All right, so hit first. Okay, here's a show I thought was going to be a miss, but turned out to be a hit. And that's a Disney Plus show, and it's called Andor. So here's the thing about this show. Yeah, the thing about this show on Disney Plus is that it is the ultimate slow burn of a TV show. The first 2, maybe 3 episodes are kind of boring. They're kind of like dialogue, exposition. This is Star Wars. Where's the action? You know? So at first you're like, I don't know. Some people gave up on it in the first couple of episodes, but by episode 4, I'm going to say the show just kicks butt. It's amazing. It's great. The acting the whole time and all that and then the world building and atmosphere is always great. You know, we know the visual effects are going to be great. That's a given for a Star Wars show. But this show, I thought it was going to be boring. Turns out to be more heartbreaking and more just more great high-level drama, and it's actually a more mature Star Wars as well. That's kind of its reputation, is that it's more mature Star Wars than than just your usual shoot 'em ups and whatnot. I guess the Book of Boba Fett is very immature to some critics, so they kind of compare them that way. But there's a lot of action in that show, right? And there's a lot of action in Obi-Wan, which had its hits and misses in terms of the episodes, I thought. But Andor did not disappoint at all. It got better and better and better. So if you gave it a shot and it was only episode 1 or maybe episode 2 and you're like, too much talking, I don't care, I've seen Rogue One, why would I want to watch this? Trust me, it's worth it in the end. So Andor is my hit for the year.
I just thought visually it was like one of the coolest looking shows this year. Like it was a wild show and a wild ride. And I agree with you. The first couple episodes, I'm like, what's going on in this? Like, I don't know what's happening. But as it went on, pieces started and the puzzle started to come together, and it was great. I loved it.
Yeah. For me,
slow burn, but worth it.
As a Star Wars fanatic, to me, that was my Star Wars. That's what I want to see Star Wars become and stay for eternity. I want it to be political. I want it to be real and gritty, and it doesn't necessarily have to have fan favorites appear. It doesn't, it doesn't need to have stormtroopers everywhere. It doesn't need to have Darth Vader show up. It just needs to be, this is what happened in the world. This is what happens to real people when a galactic dictator takes over. Like, I just thought that was brilliant. Those are the stories I want to see. I want to see what the little people do.
It's funny that you guys mentioned that. And Loop too, as you were saying, there's so much out there. I'm only a few episodes in right now. So I'm kind of in the slow period right now, but it transcends all the fan service in so much of it. It's not about, the cameos or what to check out in the background, the Easter eggs and all that. While that exists, it is so much more about an actual story. And it's a story that is, it's both its own contained story that obviously has to do with leading into Rogue One and all that, but it is also completely, you can walk into a blind. You don't have to be a huge Star Wars insider to really enjoy like the espionage and everything about it. It's great.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly true. You really don't need to have a lot of background. You really don't even need to have watched Rogue One, because it's a prequel.
Exactly.
So anybody could really jump in, and it's just such a good show. And it's a testament. It was created by Tony Gilroy, who is not a Star Wars fan. And he went into it not wanting to make a Star Wars show. He in fact told his crew, forget everything you know about Star Wars. We're not making Star Wars. We're making this incredibly deep drama that just happens to be in the Star Wars universe, and that's exactly what it is. And I can't say enough about it. I love it.
It's about rebelling against occupation. I mean, it's basically World War II. It's Poland being taken over by Germany, and how the resistance rised up and whatnot. And that's what it's all about, right? Just like Rogue One, it's all about the rising up of the resistance. And just like Ben said, not so much about the cameos. It's nice to see Darth Vader here and there. He was awesome at the end of Rogue One, and I wouldn't mind if he showed up in season 2 of Andor, but no, they didn't focus on that. They focused on Cassian and his friends, his fellow rebels in the making. So good show.
Let's go, Larry. What do you have?
Okay, well, that would have been my hit, but we've talked a lot about that now. So my hit for 2022 was a little 8-part episode Netflix series called The Cabinet of Curiosities. Guillermo del Toro's foray into television broadcasting called Cabinet of Curiosities, and it's an anthology series. So it's 8 episodes. Every episode is a standalone story, each with a different director. And they're a lot of them are sort of based on H.P. Lovecraft stories. And even the ones that aren't directly based on those stories have elements of H.P. Lovecraft, because Guillermo del Toro is a massive Lovecraftian. And they're so well told. Every one of them is completely different, but yet if you watch them all together, like the whole series, they feel cohesive. But they're disturbing, and they're frightening, and their atmosphere, it's just I couldn't get enough of this show. I watched each episode twice, I think. And even the opening sequence of the show, like the actual opening credit sequence, is brilliant. It is so beautiful to watch. It's just I'm a massive Guillermo fan. I'll literally fall at his feet and watch anything that he gives me. So I was super excited to watch this thing, and it did not let me down at all. I hope that there's another season of it. I haven't heard whether there's a season 2, but if you like horror anthology, this is a very smart horror anthology, and just beautiful. It's just beautiful to look at, and it's right up there at the top of my list this year.
I couldn't agree more. I loved it. We've talked lots about it already off the air. The thing with anthologies is always really hit and miss. There are weak episodes and there are strong episodes in any, or segments or whatever, in any kind of anthology. And I think the weakest of the Cabinet of Curiosities is still top tier television. It's all really good. Every bit of it was interesting. If it wasn't terrifying, it was at least engrossing and engaging. And when it was terrifying, it was incredibly well done.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's just brilliant. I mean, it's nice that Guillermo didn't direct. I would have liked to have seen what he would have done with a 1-hour TV show, but it was cool that he gave the spotlight to a variety of different directors to get their take on things, and he literally just curated this, what was in the cabinet. You know, it was literally his cabinet that he was collecting all these stories from these different perspectives. It's so good. It's really, it'll become one that I rewatch sort of during the October season every year, I think, because it's so well done.
Yeah, I watched the first episode. That's all I've seen of it so far. And then life happened, and it's as far as I got. So I haven't seen it, but it looked interesting from what I'd seen and what you guys are talking about. I'll definitely finish it. So
it's great. It's great.
Yeah,
I have yet to see it, so now I really want to.
Yeah,
Put it
absolutely.
on the
Yeah,
list.
sure.
all right, throwing them on the list.
list.
All right, I'll go next, and mine was Severance this year.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and it was like I just was blown away by the show. I love the look of it, and I love I love that Ben Stiller directed episodes. He wasn't even in it. It's like it was just a cool looking show, like almost like had like hints of 2001 in it, like just the look, and even Andor at the end, like the sort of like the all sort of stark white sort of atmosphere was in the show. And I love the idea of like going to work and your home life being completely different things. You don't remember what you did at work, and you don't remember being at home, and they're just separated, right? Like
Sounds like
it's
my
just
actual
such
life. Yeah.
yeah, it's just such a clever concept, and each episode just kept you hanging, and you wanted to find out more. And it was the type of show that was a mystery. Like you didn't, like, as a viewer, I love shows when you don't know what's going on and you keep getting little pieces and nuggets, and you're like, what is happening in the show? And it was just brilliantly written, and it looked awesome. I loved it so much.
My son, who's 19 now, could not stop talking about this show all year, and like he just kept like, Dad, you gotta watch this. Why are you not watching this show? I've only seen the first episode, and so the talk of Severance has been in our house since it came out, and for whatever reason I just haven't. I think I've spent too much time with Cabinet of Curiosities. I haven't watched this one, but I'm really excited about this show. I feel like it'll be right up my alley, so I'm glad it's on your list.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It is honestly like you'll be blown away when you watch it. It is so good. It's just like what the hell's going on? Like but it's awesome. So anyone else, has anyone else seen it but me? Am I the only one that's seen it?
It's on the list.
Yep.
All right.
On the very long list.
I would put it up higher because the second season's going to be crazy. So it's
Has
just
it
so
been
good.
given? It's been given a second season.
Yeah, it's been given a second
Okay.
season. So
That's always
definitely
good to know.
get at it. So Ben, what was yours?
Mine is I'm gonna go back to some comfort food and go with Stranger Things season 4. I loved it.
So good.
It was.
Yes.
I liked season 3, and I liked at first I liked it. I liked the beginning of it, and then it kind of dragged for me. So I was like, the interest level kind of waned a little bit. But then as season 4 was coming and as I was building up, I really think that they redeemed themselves a ton with any of the missteps that they may have taken in the past. I think they really did great work. It was legitimately scary. It was definitely the most, the darkest and the most extreme of the seasons, and which makes sense. I mean, as everybody's getting older and as it is getting a little more towards the horror rather than just nostalgia, they didn't lean into that quite as much. And it's still super interesting. I loved the new characters. I with a couple of small changes that could have been made. I know people weren't happy with some deaths and some survivals and that sort of thing, but overall, I still think that's just excellent television.
That Stranger Things, I think, will always be right near the top of my list. I just think what they're doing is incredible. I think it's so like outside the box and bigger than life, but it started with like this small scale sort of nostalgia thing, like this 80s that we all love and we all know, and they did it so perfectly, and then it's just grown into this massive, like, out of control world, and it's so big.
And that's what I think with season 4 is they really found their footing this time around, where it wasn't leaning too hard into any type of nostalgia or leaning too hard into any, memery that they can get out of the show. Because I think that's often a problem we're finding now is how much traction can we get with just things that are going to be talked about online, and how many memes can we make out of this episode and that sort of thing. They've focused so much on story, and though there were plenty of memeable moments, it didn't detract from what they were doing with the whole overall arc.
Yeah, I did also like that it felt to me, and I don't know whether this was the case or not, that it was sort of paying homage to Stephen King's It with the house. The house kind of felt to me like the house on Neibold Street from It, and I like that.
Sure.
Like that felt a little bit nostalgic to me, even though the movies are recent, so it's not that nostalgic. It felt like the current state of horror,
Yeah.
and it fit. So I that made me. Plus, I'm a sucker for like haunted houses. That's the thing I like. So to have it happen in a house was pretty awesome.
For sure.
Yeah, it was. I loved it. I just thought from start to finish, it was great. And of course, like it just. I don't know what they don't do anything and it blows up. Like everything they do is just like with Eddie, and like it's just like everything is. I can't go anywhere without seeing one of those shirts. Like it's like everybody has. It's just insane. Like or Will leaning up against the window of the car or whatever. Like it's just like everything they do just is gold, and I don't know why, but it's so interesting and such a great show top to bottom. It was awesome. I loved it.
So go ahead.
Well, I was going to say for me, it is those memeable moments. I wonder how many of them are by design. Like they knew Eddie was going to be a huge character. The leaning on the window, whoever thought that would be something that would be so relatable and so memeable, but like we're seeing things with Wednesday and Megan, and now like we got to incorporate a dance scene to make sure that gets out there, that sort of thing. It's not like they necessarily did that, but it's just, Stranger Things was the top of everybody's mind as it was airing. So it's just like those things click so quickly.
Yeah. Well, and what it did for Kate Bush's career.
No kidding.
That song wasn't that great in the 80s. I don't know how it became like no one was like clamoring over that song in the 80s when I was growing up. Like it was on the radio, but no one was like, oh my God, I got to hear Kate Bush. Like now it's like suddenly like kids are listening to it and thinking it's a new song. It's so crazy.
Yeah. But apparently she was making like millions of dollars a day based on downloads from iTunes and places and streaming services because of that song. Like out of the, like, what has she done? Like, where has she been in the last 10, 15, 20 years? I don't know, but she's doing all right now.
That's awesome. Those are great. All those are fantastic choices. Like it's just so good. Just add more to my list, right? Like every year. So that's a story. Is there anything else out there that you guys like have to mention that's like that you the only one I want to mention for sure is Yellow Jackets. Yellow Jackets.
I haven't seen that, but
it's kind of like Lost meets like Twin Peaks meets like it's just a bunch of things going on in it, and I love again another one that's just giving you little nuggets of things, and you're like, what's happening in this? So it was just a well put together show and really cool. Like,
I didn't know how geeky we had to lean for everything. I did have a ton of shows that weren't necessarily on the geeky level, but White Lotus season 2 for me was one of those must watches. I love appointment tuning again. I love it. I love waiting a week for shows again. Binging was amazing when it first started with Netflix and Prime and all that, but now to actually wait, it becomes so much a bigger part of your life. I think we've had this conversation in past episodes of this, but to have to let that stuff marinate with you and talk to your friends about the theories and all that of what's going on. White Lotus is the epitome of that for me. I loved every second of that show.
Yeah, I think this is my theory on binging versus not binging. Regular shows like appointment tuning, awesome. Like on a regular show, reality shows, they can be all binged. Like those Let Me Eat Cake or whatever the hell they are. Like those type of shows is it Cake or whatever? Those type of shows that I think definitely can be binged. Like they throw them all out at me. I'll watch them when I feel like it. But I love appointment tuning because in the meantime, we're talking about the show in that week and trying to figure out theories and trying to figure out where it's going. And I love it. It's so good. It's
great. That was definitely high. And Only Murders in the Building too at the same time. Like it was that was another one that those were two shows when they were happening at the same time briefly. It's like, oh, we've got something every night that we got to watch now. And it's great. And again, I mean, here we are sitting on a podcast, and the way they leaned into the podcast world in season 2 and how meta it got, but then not overly meta, because again, that doesn't work all the time. But again, it was just another one of those. It was such a surprise for the first season, and then for the second season to build upon, improve, and in no way were any of those seasons any lesser than the first ones. They were great.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's great.
I was a big fan of Cobra Kai season 5.
Oh,
Speaking of 80s and Stranger Things, the nostalgia, the songs and the atmosphere, the clothes and everything, right? The hair is so awesome. But Cobra Kai is a show set today, but Johnny Lawrence is still in the 80s. So that's the best part about the show for me. That and like he's so funny. He doesn't know how to work a computer, a cell phone. Like he buys a broken cell phone, a cracked screen cell phone. He's like, what can I get for $50? It's like, I'll give you this Motorola from 2007. It's broken. There you go. Yeah, it'll do. You know, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about technology, and that's what I love about Johnny Lawrence. So Cobra Kai season 5, they brought back. They keep bringing back more and more characters from the Cobra Kai movies. This year they brought back Barnes from Karate Kid 3. He was like the jerk bully rival, and they also brought back Jessica as well, his love interest in the 3rd movie. Thomas Ian Griffith plays Terry Silver. He was also the slimy bad guy from Karate Kid 3, and he was in the season 4. Amazing, great job, just being a total jerk, like rich, guy that doesn't care about anything. And Martin Kove again, playing Kreese as well. And Rings of Power, I'm not going to go into it. Don't worry. I know I can't talk about Rings of Power because it'll be 3 hours, but I liked it, and that's all I'm going to say. I liked Rings of Power. There's fans out there that hate it, fans out there that love it. Don't care. I enjoyed it.
Well, I need to add 2 to our list. First, House of Dragons. We can't let the year go by without talking about, and I actually forgot to put that on my list because that may have taken a top spot, but I loved House of Dragons. I think House of Dragons was the rare spin-off TV show spin-off that may have at least equaled the original, maybe even surpassed a little bit. I really liked it a lot. I thought the characters were great. It was a smaller, it wasn't smaller scale, but it was more compact. There weren't as many characters, there weren't as many locations, so they could really focus on the core group, and you really got attached to them. You really sort of built a relationship with these people. And have you all seen it?
No, I haven't.
You haven't? Okay, I won't spoil anything then. But
I think I know why you like it. It's because they don't have to world build quite as much, right? Like so much of it is already established that you could get right into it and start this new story and this new thread through everything, right?
Yes, absolutely. And enough about the past that it you can jump right into it. But they do such a good job at showing you locations that you are familiar with, but 200 years earlier. So things that were destroyed in Game of Thrones are fully intact, and it's just exciting to see those things. But that's not the focus of it. The focus is the characters, and they do such a great job with these new characters. I am so excited. I haven't heard whether it's been picked up for a 2nd season. I think it has.
I think it has.
I think it has.
Probably.
So yeah, it will. I mean, I think it surpassed like Game of Thrones with their numbers. So I'm sure it'll be around for a while. But we can't not mention that in this review. And then
you also love terrible. You love terrible wigs as well. So that's why you love it. Like those wigs are honestly, those wigs are horrible. They are horrible.
Some of those wigs
That's
were
the only thing of the show I hated.
Yeah, some of the wings weren't so great. No, not gonna win for makeup and hair.
No.
This one, no. And then the one other honorable mention I want to make is Moon Knight, because I really I like Loop. I know you're like a diehard Moon Knight fan. You've got the t-shirts, you've been reading the books, you know everything there is to know, and you've got that right there thing. But I knew nothing about Moon Knight going into it, other than what Loop has told me over the years, which isn't very much. But I loved the combination of Batman and Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
To me, that's what it felt like. And I just thought it was great. It was one of my favorite of the Marvel series this year. It was just, to me, it was very different, and I just thought it was really cool. I quite liked it. I'd like to see more of that.
Moon Knight is kind of like Marvel's Dr. Fate, right?
Yeah.
Not to be a DC nerd, but but it's kind of the same thing, because he's not really in control of it. It's kind of like Firestorm too. It's like this dual personality thing, except Dr. Fate is more like, he's the god inside the helmet, where like whatever the name of the Egyptian god that Moon Knight worships and works for.
Khonshu, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So it's kind of the same kind of concept there, where, he's not totally in control, but it was a pretty good show. I like Moon Knight.
Let's flip to misses now. Let's start with Ben.
Oh, I'm definitely taking Larry's, I'm sure, on this one. Midnight Club was a huge disappointment for me. Mike Flanagan's latest horror series, based on the Christopher Pike, like young adult. everything Larry and I have talked about, everything that Mike Flanagan has done has been absolutely incredible, whether it was Haunting of Hill House, Bly Manor, Midnight Mass was a surprise, like
That was so good.
unbelievable show that we talked about last year.
Acting.
We were both so excited for this one, and it didn't hit for either one of us. And I don't want to speak on your behalf too much, Larry, but for me, it was just, I didn't find it as nearly as engrossing as any of his other things. We have our theories on why we didn't connect with the characters, perhaps because they're teenagers. Not sure. That might have something to do with it, but it didn't hit the same way that it did. And again, I don't know if it was he didn't have as much of creative control as he did with his other projects or what it was. It was all kind of falling flat. I loved the idea, super excited for it. I loved the a different scary story that happens in this overall much more dramatic series, and that's quite often what he's been doing with his Netflix shows. But this one it was flat for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in and go next just because we have the same miss.
Yeah.
I was so excited about this show, and I think personally, I think the reason why I didn't connect with the characters is because none of the characters were likable. Like they were all mean to each other, and I didn't like them. Like it wasn't even so much that I didn't connect with them or find something on a personal level to connect with. They were just not nice people. I found.
It's true. And they're just kind of generic archetypes too, right? In so many ways, they're like, oh, watch out. There's the badass over there. And there's the sensitive guy, there's just, everybody was really kind of generic in it. I found.
I think you're absolutely right. So I don't know that I don't know that I can blame Mike Flanagan too much. I think part of that may have been the source material. Like I think maybe they were written that way. Like that was the characters that were in the young adult novel, because I haven't read that, so I don't know. So I'm going to assume that he did the absolute best job he possibly did with the source material, because I love Mike Flanagan, and I don't think he would let us down intentionally.
No.
The one redeeming factor with this show is that it was very atmospheric. It takes place in this old house, and again, going back to my haunted house, my love of haunted houses, it is very atmospheric, and it's quite creepy. And the visually, the look of it was pretty cool. There were some hidden doors and hidden elevators that led to scary rooms, and
which we've seen in all of his other ones, though. That's the thing, is like a little bit of rehashing in that too.
It kind of was, but I kind of enjoy the look, like that sort of atmospheric look. So, but having said that, the characters were such a turnoff that I haven't actually finished it yet. It's on my miss list. And I have
another classic. Larry hasn't finished it.
Yeah.
You got to see this show. It's awesome. So I watched the whole thing. I only watched the first episode. I was like, that's all I thought.
Yeah, I kind of have a habit of doing that.
It might be good. I don't know.
This one, I still have the last 4 episodes, so I don't know if anything is redeemed for. However, I can say that it was officially canceled. So it generally did not get good reviews. People did not embrace this thing like they wanted it to. It was supposed to have a second season because apparently there is a cliffhanger, like it doesn't end. So now there's no motivation for me to finish this series.
Or Flanagan, hasn't he gone over to Prime now? I think he's heading over to Prime. Yeah,
he jumped.
He's doing Dark Tower, isn't he, or something?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Finally, someone's
he's doing so.
He's taking it on.
He's doing an Edgar Allan Poe adaptation first, I think, and that might still be with Netflix. I don't know.
That is, but I think it's almost completed though, isn't it? I believe that's like in post at this point.
Yeah, so that should come out this year potentially, and then he'll leave. So whether I finish that, I'm sure I'll finish it at some point.
Watch Severance first.
No. I'll watch Severance first.
Yeah. Then go back to that. Yeah. I didn't see it. Is it the same cast as the other ones? Because you always use the same actors, or pretty much. No.
I don't think there's anybody in this one that was from the others, was there?
Is his wife? Is she in it? Is she the lady in the forest? I can't remember. Rebecca Ferguson.
Maybe. Yeah, she might be. Yeah, there might be. Yeah, I can't remember what her name is. Katie Seagal. Katie Seagal. Is that who you're talking about?
Oh, right. Yeah, it's not Rebecca Ferguson. You're right. Yeah, Katie Seagal.
I think that's who you're talking about. Yeah. So there might be one person, but the main cast they're all new.
Okay.
And now they're all canceled.
Yeah, I saw the cancellation before I even got to it, and I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. So Neil, what about you?
A show that I did give a chance, and then another chance, and another chance to, because we've been waiting about 35 years to see these characters, or at least one character again, and that is Willow. And
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know, I know you guys are like big George Lucas fans, especially Simner there, but this Willow show was wow, really bad. It starts off okay. The first episode or two is just kind of meh. It's just kind of okay, all right. So this is where they are, you know. And Sorcia's the queen, and we are introduced to her kids. And you know, there's a prince and a princess, and there's all these other characters. And for obvious reasons, there's no Val Kilmer, right? He can't speak, and they're not really going to use him, and that's understandable. That's not really the disappointment. The disappointment is that the story goes nowhere at all in episode 3, and they do nothing with these characters. The adult version of Alora, right, the baby from the film, she grows up kind of. She's like 18 or whatever at this point, and she's just kind of useless. It's not a good show, and the worst offender to me is kind of maybe a silly complaint, but maybe not. Is the fact that they play all these like late 20th century songs in Willow, and that just kind of takes me right out of it. I'm like, wait a minute, is that Black Hole Sun from Soundgarden? And you're like,
Oh, they're a
this
nice
is
tailing
Willow.
it. I see. Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, like if you heard, if I heard "Smells Like Teen Spirit" in Lord of the Rings, it would be like, what? You know, like it's just, it just, even if it's a different version, you know, and it's like, it doesn't matter. Like they're playing Crimson and Clover, and they're playing like punk music, and you're just like, why? I don't get this. So anyway, it's a big disappointment, Willow, and I stopped watching after episode 6, I think, and I don't even know if that was the last episode. They tried to explain what happened to Val Kilmer's character. They did a very poor job at that. They bring in Christian Slater for comic relief briefly, but then that doesn't work very well. So yeah, Willow was a miss for me. Yeah,
I thought
clearly.
that same thing about the music, and I don't. We did watch the movie not that long ago because we did a whole show on it, but I don't
Yeah.
remember them in the movie using music from the time. Did they?
No,
I don't
it was
recall
all just
that.
original score. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay, so that's what made that so strange to me. If they had done that in the original movie, and the original movie had 80s music in it, I could see why they would have done that now. But because the original didn't, and this is what it's based on, it seemed like an odd choice.
I think we're looking at a trend of trying to bring music, like some songs back from the dead, like Stranger Things did. I know Bridgerton, they do like chamber music versions of pop songs, current stuff. You know, it seems to be. And again, that was the big thing with Knight's Tale, and they've got like Queen, you know, playing and all this stuff as it's going on. So
and I actually remember when Knight's Tale came out, that was a hot topic at the time. Like, why did they do this? Like, this is such a weird thing. Like, I distinctly remember having a conversation with somebody about why they put Queen in this movie. Like, it was such a weird thing. Like, I don't think anybody's kind of gotten used to that yet, but it does seem that that's what's happening. And I mean, some of this obviously happened much before, but I attribute a lot of it to the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. When that movie came out and made excellent use of like 70s and 80s rock songs that nobody had heard for a while, and they become so big, I think that people jumped on that and said, we can revive our movie, we can make our movie a hit. Even if our movie's not a hit, our soundtrack will be a massive hit on Spotify, because
big red flag these days.
I totally think that was a big part of it. I think Guardians of the Galaxy sort of changed the direction of music in pop culture.
But that was also set in current days, and also Peter Quill from Earth has the cassette. There's an explanation for why they they're playing these songs. It's still Earth, it's still our world, you know, even though there's more worlds, you know, it's still sci-fi fantasy, but it's still set in Earth. It's just like Indiana Jones is fantasy, but it's still set in Earth, so they can play like Hound Dog by Elvis Presley or whatever they want to play. But in fantasy, where it's not supposed to be Earth, you know, and there's no such thing as this music according to all these characters, and yet here they are dancing to these rock and roll tunes. You know, it's just like,
well, music transcends all universes.
It does. It really does.
Yeah, there you go.
I watched the first 3 episodes, or 4, I think, of it so far, and I wasn't a huge fan. I don't think Willow's it's way overrated. I don't think it's as great as everybody thinks it is. And the one thing I thought off the top that I liked about it was that those 2 sprites weren't in it from the movie. Those, like, which I wanted to drop kick. I couldn't stand. They ruined the movie for me, the original Willow. But I find Willow is like, he's just not likable as a character. Like, he's angry. He's always like,
he's cynical.
Yeah, he's a bit of a jerk. And I'm like, I'm trying to root for him, but I'm really struggling with it. Like, but anyways.
Although I do have to say, Warwick Davis has become a better actor in his older age than he was in the original. He was really not a great actor back in the day, and I think that he's much more natural in this one, if we have to say something nice about
like
it.
he's fine that way. I just think they've made the character like too unlikable. Like it's just I can't get into it. But
I don't think anybody was asking for a revival of Willow. I don't know. Maybe
not really. I don't think so.
Just nostalgia sells.
Came as a surprise, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of unlikable, I have mine now, which is I'll preface this by I love Mike Myers. Pentabra.
Oh wow,
terrible.
I forgot about that one. I literally have blocked that from my
I couldn't stop thinking about it because I love Mike Myers and I really wanted I love like all his movies and everything, and I wanted to give this a chance, and it's the same jokes he's been doing. There's a whole Canadian, I don't know if anyone saw it, but there's a whole Canadian thing in it. And it's like, if you're Canadian doing Canadian jokes, we should have the insider, track on good humor that no one else knows about. And he's using the same, like people saying a boot, and like, it's the same jokes. Like, and we don't need to see him doing 55 characters. He's great at characters, but not that many of them. It's just too much. It's just, I don't know what it was.
Even his delivery.
He's doing an Eddie Murphy.
Yeah. But even his delivery was the same. Like the way he delivered the jokes is exactly the same as the way he delivered them as Austin Powers. And I'm like, okay, move on. Like, try something new. It just showed that he has almost no range. Like, he's funny.
And it was from something that was hyped to be this huge return of Mike Myers, and we haven't seen him in anything aside from these bit parts here and there. But there's like the return of comedy Mike Myers, and then it's like, oh no, it's still 2001 in his eyes.
I don't understand the team that greenlit this, that watched this and said, let's keep going with it. Let's continue with an entire series.
It was just him in different outfits. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the concept, like the look of it was kind of cool. Like, it was directed fine. It had a kind of a cool concept, but again, but even the other actors in it weren't great. Like Ken Jeong in every movie. Like, it's the same stuff. And it's I don't know. I think with some other better actors, he could have really like nailed this, but and some better writing, but it was just too cheesy. It was just cheesy, I guess, is the best way to say it. Like, it was
not in a good way.
No, it was a cheese fest, and it was just like, oh my God, like, stop it. It's like somebody's like uncle that just keeps making jokes at a party and you can't stand it much. That's exactly
more
what
and more out
like.
of date. Yeah.
Yeah. It's exactly what it felt like.
Yes.
Hey, young people, I got some jokes for you. It's like, just, I don't know. It was tired. It seemed tired. There was a couple like haha moments, like, where you're like, it's like, but that was about it. In 6 episodes, I want a little more than that, right? So but
it makes me worried for any talk of Austin Powers 4, because I think that's still on the table, that he's potentially coming. I'm like, after seeing that, I don't want to see another Austin Powers. It's literally going to be the same Austin Powers. Like, I don't.
And I'll tell you, like, I watched MacGruber, and it was way better than that.
Oh,
like, I actually laughed out loud in MacGruber, and this I didn't like laugh once. Like, it was like 6 like hours of laughless minutes. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it was not good. So, but anyways, I'll open it up now because everybody's done one, right? Everybody had theirs.
Right. What was that Mike Myers one called? The Mike Myers show.
Pentaverate or
Pentaverate.
Pentaverate, right? Okay, sorry.
Which was like a brief. That was the brief mention he makes in "So I Married an Axe Murderer." The dad says it. Like, there's like this group called the Pentaverate, so that's what they were playing off of.
Yeah, and I mean the concept is good. Like, it could.
Yeah, it was fine. Like,
it could have been funny if it had been handled by somebody else.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's not talk about that show ever again.
No. Any other quick misses like that you want to throw out there? I'm just gonna throw one quick one out before we go. Archive 81. Did anybody watch this show? It came out early in the year.
I'm glad you're mentioning it though, because it's on the list.
Yeah, and so it's just this guy that it's interesting if you're in TV or media. It's like this guy gets hired to just look through all this archive footage and log it essentially, but then he starts finding this whole storyline that's going on, which is really interesting for about the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then it just goes nowhere. It's been canceled already, but it goes absolutely nowhere. But it's one of those shows where they keep giving little bits where you're like, okay, this is gonna be good, and then it does. None of them pay off. Like, none of the bits pay off. So it was just a bore fest for it was very slow paced, like interesting in a way, but not enough to keep me like, I felt like I really wasted my time after I watched it. I'm like, I gave it a chance. I gave it a chance, and that's all I could do.
I do have one hit and miss that I wasn't sure if it was going to come up from any of you guys, but as far as hits go, I want to say that season 3 of The Boys really hit for me.
Oh God, it was so good.
Loved it. It was, it went just as over the top in some cases. That opening scene of season 3, I don't know how they'd ever top that, but it was also weirdly more mature. It had a much better storyline in my eyes. I really was able to follow and cared a lot more what was going on in this season. But then as a miss, I thought Diabolical was no good. The animated spin-off that they did.
I didn't see that one. No,
it was a quick binge. A lot of them were shorts, like 8 to 10 minutes. Some were like 15, but it was little unrelated things that were going on within the Boys universe. And they just use it as an example. Like we saw Invincible was fantastic. This was like that level of gore and outrageousness times 10, but with absolutely no real purpose to it. So I just found like it was almost like we've got this extra boys money. What are we going to do with it?
Extra boys money.
Quite as good.
All right, we'll take those off the list. Take that off the list then.
Neil, anything you got there?
Kind of hard to stick with any show that I don't like. Just Miss Marvel again. Just like
I watched that whole thing.
Did you?
Yeah,
Did it get better?
I didn't mind it. I just thought it was kind of all over the board. They tried to do too much with it. And it was like they could have really simplified it and kept one sort of like track, but it was all over the place. And it was like I just thought it was because of that it didn't pan out like the way they put it together. I can't describe it. It was like either you go all teen or you do other stuff. And she was like all over the place and going through time, and I didn't understand any of it, so I didn't know what was going on. But it sets up for a movie, and that's basically all it seemed like. The whole purpose of it was to set up so they didn't have to tell you who she was when you get to the Marvels or whatever the next Marvel Captain Marvel movie is. So
I feel like they should be doing more of like just one, and I think this is what they're doing is more 1 hour specials to introduce new characters rather than
Werewolf by Night is brilliant.
Yeah, Werewolf by Night was excellent.
Yeah, so give us more of that. Like introduce characters in a 1 hour backstory. That's the half the length of a movie. That's all we need is a backstory, and then put them in the movies.
Like a 1 hour Boba Fett would have been perfect.
Perfect.
And maybe 10 minutes of Boba Fett and the rest of the Mandalorian would have been like a perfect movie. That's all we needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, She-Hulk was okay too. That was kind of a rough ride. I don't know if you guys seen She-Hulk at all.
I love She-Hulk. I don't like I know everyone hated on it. I thought it was great.
I didn't like it.
Yeah,
I felt it was too memey, right? Like it was one of the that really seemed like they were leaning into let's make as many memes as possible in this.
Yeah.
I could totally see that. I like She-Hulk, and I just enjoyed it. Like generally, I thought it was cast well, and it was just kind of fun and quirky. I don't know what the purpose of it was, but it was fun and quirky. Like I didn't like. All right, well, let's move on to films then, and we'll do. Let's start with our hits. I will start with Larry. What do you got?
Well, this was tough because I have a lot on my list of hits this year, but we've decided to talk about the one.
Okay, yeah, we'll throw it out. We'll throw your other ones out after.
We'll throw them out afterwards. So the honorable mentions. So I had to think long and hard about the one that actually was my favorite this year, and I have to go with Top Gun Maverick. And the reason I have to stick with that is because I saw it 3 times in the theater, and that's the only movie I actually went back and rewatched multiple times. I just like this movie was way better than it should have been. As a sequel 35 years later or however long it was, it should not have been that good. It should have been cheesy. It should have been like a lot of fan service, and there was fan service in there, but it had no right to be as good as it ended up being. And the story was so engrossing, and it the whole thing had matured. Like, to me, as much as I loved the original, and I'm a big fan of the original, I think this story was so much stronger. Like, the characters were, there was real peril. And I mean, it was literally real peril in that they were flying their own jets. And some of there was a scene of one of the guys who actually passed out because of the G-forces, and that was real. Like, he actually passed out as he was flying this thing. Like, and knowing that going in, you're just like, oh my God, like these people are risking their lives to create this thing, which is, you don't hear very often. And it was just so tense and so intense. and you really felt like you were part of their, like, this world. Like you were on board the planes with these people who were risking everything to make these. It was just, I just was so blown away by how good a job they did with it. And there was the fan service. Like there was a lot of reference to Goose, and there was the whole playing the piano in the bar. His son is playing the piano in the bar, and they're playing Great Balls of Fire. And so,
And see, that's the level of fromage that did exist. There was some cheese in the new one, but it was an appropriate amount, I think. And like you said, it wasn't just the fan service, just that throwback cheesiness.
Tasty cheese.
And there, there was a whole, they didn't do beach volleyball this time, but there was like beach football.
Yeah,
so,
equally as ridiculous. Yeah,
it was totally ridiculous. But again, it made sense in the story, because I feel like, and I was actually reading about that, like, why did they include that? And there was an article written about why they did the beach volleyball, and essentially it was a team building thing. Like you got these pilots who have to depend on each other, so that's what they do. Like they have like sporting events, and they just
topless. I love
topless.
it.
They're all
in jeans. Yeah,
that's right. This is what they do. They got to trust that they're comfortable with each other in all kinds of ways.
I like when the Millennium Falcon came down at the end and saved them. We're in that pit
that
run.
Was awesome.
That was my favorite part of it. Like the
you're not allowed to see it.
Oh, okay. I have seen it. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was good.
Yeah, that is my hit of 2022.
All right, let's go to Ben. Let's see what you got.
I've got to go super recent, and how I had high expectations and was still blown away by Glass Onion. I adore that movie, and all I could say at the end of it was like, wow, that was delightful, and I cannot wait for more. It was so fun. Everybody's now campaigning for the Benoit Blanc extended universe, which I want to see so much. Like, I think Rian Johnson does an amazing job. He's never, in my eyes, now this could be divisive, Rian Johnson has never taken a wrong turn as far as I'm concerned. I love everything he's done. A lot of it is confrontational, but it's just so fun what they do with these movies. I'm a huge fan of Clue when it came out in the 80s, and this is like as good as it gets on that level now. Daniel Craig is clearly having fun in his post-Bond world. You could tell he was all steely and bored during the Bond movies. And now he's just hamming it up. We see this Belvedere commercial and him as Benoit Blanc. He's just, it's amazing. It's so fun. And I'm going to watch it over and over again.
Yeah.
I loved it. I totally love that movie.
Yeah. Both of them, like the Knives Out.
Absolutely. For sure.
Yeah. They're just great. I'm so excited for this franchise.
Yeah.
That if they keep going with it, I just think this is so great. And I also like that they are standalone. So I watched the new one. My wife hadn't seen Knives Out, but I thought, I don't know that you really need to. And as it turns out, you don't.
No.
So these are literally standalone. They're going to be standalone. I mean, they're like the Agatha Christie, like the Death on the Nile and Murder on the Orient Express that have come out recently.
Yeah.
They're
Except
the same.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. but they're the same sort of thing. Like they're just, it's the thread is Benoit Blanc. But the rest of you can jump in anywhere you want. And I love that too.
Mine was everywhere. I'm sorry, anything everywhere all at once, or everything everywhere all at once, or whatever you want to say. The that was mine from the beginning of the year on. That was like it was like the way they presented the multiverse. Like I felt for the characters. I thought it was just an incredible story, and incredible, like just visually incredible too. I just love the whole thing start to finish, and I can't stop thinking about it. And it's at the end of the year, and it's a new year, and I'm still thinking about that movie. So it was like so good. I loved it so much.
I agree. I just watched it with my son over the holiday because he had heard a lot about it, and he was blown away too. Like it's one of those ones that everybody can like. But we were talking about why he didn't watch it, like why he wasn't interested during the year, and it didn't do overly well in the theater. Like, I mean, it did fine, but and so we're wondering why that was. And we went back and we watched the trailer for it. If you go back and rewatch the trailer, it looks like a cut rate Marvel movie. Like they marketed it like a superhero movie, but the special effects aren't as good as Marvel. So when you look at the trailer, you'd be like, this looks like a cheap Marvel movie, but that's not at all what it is. So I think that might have turned some people off. And maybe that's why people didn't like rush to the theaters to see it, because that's not what the story is at all. But I think that might be why it didn't get have the same impact, because I don't think it was marketed well for what it was, but man, that was a good movie.
Yeah, it was just so like there was just so much like to unpack in it, like as far as just like the like your choices in life and how things go, and it's just so good. Like it was just, I don't know what it was about it. I just like I was just stunned after I watched it. It was just so beautiful. It's such a beautiful looking picture. Like it's just so good. So
With that movie, it was incredible. It's one of my favorites too, and it was on the list. I knew somebody's going to take care of it. It's so funny because at the same time as Multiverse of Madness, this is the one that critics were like, multiverses are cool. Like it's kind of like you could do so much with it, but it's nice to not be confined, as weird as it sounds, confined to comic book worlds as much as there is in that. You could still branch out and have a much more personal story with this. And it was the way that they did it was unbelievable. And I don't know whether it was the timing of its proximity to Doctor Strange or what it was, but yeah, it deserves so much more love. And I know for sure it's going to get it.
Oh
yeah, it will for sure. Yeah.
And I think watching it as parents, like three of us are parents here, and I think watching it as parents made a big difference.
Yeah.
Just knowing once it got to the end of it, you're like, wow, yep, that's what parenthood is like.
Yeah.
The daughter.
There's a lot of that in there. It was brilliant. Like just so clever.
Yeah, it was so
I liked
good.
it better than the Doctor Strange film, and I like that movie.
Yes. No, for sure. Yeah.
You know you're doing well when you can out multiverse Sam Raimi.
Yeah, no
Yeah, that is a high compliment right there.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Neil, what do you got?
Well, I thought about this. I thought that was like definitely in my top 5 right there. That one, but I thought about, you know what? There's a few movies I could mention that I really liked, but then in the end, in hindsight, I think I just really liked the performance. Like Elvis was really good, but Austin Butler made that movie. Like I think that it's really all about his performance more than anything. And then there were a few other good ones again that were just because of like Avatar 2 was great because of the visuals. Like it's an amazing visual feast, but it's not that great of a movie, I thought. Writing wise, the movie that really came together for me is I'm going to go back to pretty much the beginning of 2022 as well, just like Loop did, in a movie that's been kind of forgotten. You can watch it on Crave these days, and it's called The Northman.
Oh yeah,
and this
yeah.
As a professional cameraman, I mean, we all work in broadcasting, and we all have a respect and understanding of what, you know, good shooting and good lighting and good, you know, all that is compared to the next thing that's just whatever on TV or whatever. This movie makes use of natural lighting so well. The cinematography here, if it doesn't get an Oscar nomination, I'll eat my hat because it deserves it, you know, wherever my hat is. But it deserves a nomination for probably directing, editing, and certainly cinematography. The acting is great. It's very intense. It's bloody, but not too bloody. And these are Viking raiders. This is Viking times. This is a show about brutality and revenge. And it's really Alexander Skarsgård's movie. He's co-producer. He's the star. Willem Dafoe's in it. Ethan Hawke. I never thought he'd make a great Viking, but here he is. He's the
This is a terrific film. Yeah.
Fantastic. So and Anya Taylor-Joy is in the movie. Bjork's in the movie. You know, it's a very interesting cast, and done very, very well. Really all about, you know, how revenge only leaves everyone, you know, dead. You know, the whole eye for an eye thing leaves everyone blind, and that lesson is there. But the way they shot it and the intensity of it and how classy it was in terms of the violence and, you know, possibly rape and things like that are off screen. Any, you know, animal deaths or anything like that, anything we don't want to actually see, even though it's, you know, it's an important part of this era. Anything we don't want to see is tastefully done off camera. So we're
there's
just like,
a level of class that Dave Eggers has in his movies, right? Like he approaches some really grimy stuff, especially with The Lighthouse and some of this weird stuff that goes on in The Lighthouse, but it still does have that level of artistry to it, right? That really does legitimize it. Northman's right up there with that too.
Yeah, just I love the cinematography, and just again, just as a cameraman, I mean, that was right up my alley. So I don't know if it was the best of the best movie of the year. I have yet to see Wakanda Forever. I have yet to see The Whale, which is apparently all about the performance of Brendan Fraser. And I hope he, you know, gets recognized and all that. And I haven't seen The Fabelmans. So there's a few movies that are apparently, you know, 10 out of 10s that I still have yet to see. But for now, I'm going to go with The Northman because of the way it was made.
That's awesome. So is there anything else we want to throw out before we move on to misses?
I got it. I got to give it to the Batman too. That was going to be one that I wanted. I loved the Batman, and I know that a lot of people are kind of bored by it. But I still think that was an absolutely impressive feat to put a movie like the Batman in much more gangster noir style than it was an overblown action movie. I was among the detractors of Robert Pattinson taking over the role. And then I kept getting reminded about Heath Ledger. Nobody liked Heath Ledger at first, with the Joker. I think he did a great job. I loved the moodiness of it. The time of like the 3 hours that it took didn't bother me at all, because I still think that it was packed with enough. It moved fine. It didn't drag a lot. It did sometimes. But that opening scene is one of the highlights of the year for me. That was incredible.
Yeah, I agree. That was on my list too. I have a couple extras. Neil, you already mentioned the Fabelmans. Fabelmans is probably second on my list. It hit every chord with me. Just growing up, when I was 12, I was making animated films with my Super 8, my dad's Super 8 camera. And I mean, you haven't seen the movie yet, so it doesn't spoil anything. He makes a movie with a train, and I had actually done that. I actually made a movie with a model train set. And so there was so much in this movie that really hit home. And I just thought it's smart, and it's caring, and it's like, everybody in it has heart, and it's really, really well done. It's got a great ending. I highly recommend it. It was probably number 2 for me. But the one other one that I really wanted to mention as a hit for me was a tiny little movie called Marcel the Shell with Shoes On.
Yes. I saw that. Yeah.
Did we all see that? Did you guys see that?
Yes.
Oh,
no, I've heard of it.
You've never heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I haven't.
Oh, you've heard of it. Oh, okay. I've always liked that character, the YouTube. I just think he's such a cute little thing, but he's so real. I mean, he's a shell with a googly eye stuck on him, but the way he behaves and his perspective on life is so real. And the movie, it was like an extended version of that. It just felt so good, and it felt like I wanted to live in that world. I wanted to be Marcel's friend, and I wanted to be friends with his family, and such a good movie.
That was such a surprise that it was able to extend to a full-length movie, because the shorts that had been released 15 years ago, probably, like, those are old shorts on YouTube.
A long time.
To actually be able to pull off an entire movie out of it was incredible. And it worked, though.
Yeah, it totally
did. This is me at the beginning of the movie. This is me at the end.
I know.
Yeah. I was like the person, I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I just went because my son really wanted to go. He said it was going to be great. And I like, by the end of it, I was like in tears. And I loved it. I loved that movie. It was so good.
Yeah, me too. I'd love to see it. It wouldn't surprise me if it's up for best anim. I mean, I don't know actually though if it qualifies as animated, because I think something like 70% of your movie has to be like fully animated to qualify as an animated film, and there were live action scenes, and it took place in a real world. So I don't know where it would be nominated, or if it will be nominated for anything, but I feel like it should be, because it's just such a wonderful little movie.
I know we've got. Go ahead, Neil.
I was just going to say they'll probably give it to the Puss in Boots movie anyway.
Which is actually not bad. I watched it with the kids, and it was surprisingly very good.
It's apparently good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was good. We've been super wholesome with the Fabelmans and Marcel the Shell. Can I grime it up just a little bit? And a huge surprise, another hit was Barbarian. I don't know if you guys saw Barbarian.
I was going to mention that one. I was just about to say
about that one.
Man, that was a non-stop questioning thrill ride of a movie, and it was it got so wild, and then it like. Everything about that was so well done. I could not.
I loved it. I loved it start to finish.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that. Yes, absolutely. Can I just add to that, because I've forgotten to put, now that you've mentioned that, Pearl. I want to put Pearl.
Oh yeah, Pearl and X, both of them. Yeah,
and X. This whole universe that they're creating in, because I think there's another one coming out called Maxine.
Maxine, yep,
with Triple X in the center. I love this 70s throwback horror genre.
Beautiful,
that he's created, and I thought Pearl was on par with X, and it was so weird and fun, and gross and
Yep.
I liked X better than Pearl, but
Yeah.
I like elderly sex, so I actually liked it
Yeah,
better.
why not?
But it's like, I just thought X was like a better horror film than Pearl. But Pearl was more like a character study to me. But I did enjoy it a lot. Like it was really cool. The other one
Can
I
we
wanted
use
to mention,
Loop's last line there for a promo? By the way,
yeah,
Can
let's
we
put it.
just
I
use
love
that
elderly
quick
sex.
little-
Like just
elderly sex.
cut, print. We're good.
Elderly sex.
Mark the time on that one. We'll be using that one.
I just wanted to mention one other one was Prey.
Oh
like,
yes, that's on my list too.
I went in not thinking I like, because I love Predator and I love Aliens and I love Predators versus Aliens, and I wasn't sure what to expect from this, and I loved it. I thought it was like a great like build up, and it didn't like go goofy, and it was just really cool. That was a cool concept.
Yeah,
I'm not a Predator fan. Like they're fine. Like I enjoy them or whatever, but I'm not really a fan of that franchise. This one I really liked.
Yeah.
This one I thought was excellent. I thought it was really well done. It was a great origin story. I thought that was great. Good call on that one. I've got one last one if anybody else, because I don't think we can let a year in review go by where Jordan Peele has released something and not mention it.
No kidding.
Oh,
yeah.
Nope, I thought was great. I thought it was a unique story. I thought it was weird and I didn't know where it was going, and I loved the Western element of it, and I loved that people were just trying to carry on with their lives, but this bizarre thing was happening in their world. It was such a unique film for the horror genre. I thought it was so smart.
Not a letdown, but it to me it's the weakest of his three.
Yeah.
Because it didn't blow me away the way that the first two did. Obviously Get Out is in a league all its own.
Yeah.
And Us was equally as amazing. This one with such high expectations, I didn't know if he could live up to it, and he totally lived up to it, but it was right there, like that for me. That's why it didn't quite make the best of, is because it's like, it better be good. It's Jordan Peele. It better be.
I wasn't a big fan of Us. I loved Get Out. I wasn't a big fan of Us. So this one to me brought it back.
Little redemption.
After Us. And then
Mm-hmm.
he had the Twilight Zone show. That was sort of it was okay. And I was after Us, not enjoying Us. And then after this show, I thought, is he going to be the next M. Night Shyamalan?
Yeah.
But no, this one for me brought him back. So I was thrilled with it. I really enjoyed that movie a lot.
All right, well, let's go to Mrs. Neil, you start us off. Something that's just a movie that just was like you're looking forward to, maybe didn't go hit your expectations.
I guess in terms of just like a big budget movie that looked like it was going to be a lot of fun, but for me was a big letdown. The first thing that comes to mind is actually the Thor movie, Love and Thunder.
Yes.
So it's not like the worst movie of the year. I'm sure it's not the worst movie of the year. I probably think of one worse later on, but right now that's the one that's sticking out to my brain right now, in my brain, because there's something about it where I really liked Ragnarok, right? So same director, Taika Waititi, and there was something about this movie that the whole time it just felt like I was outside. It didn't involve me in any way. It just seemed like, oh, I'm Thor Odin's son and I'm the greatest, and that's how it begins, and then things go wrong, and then Jane Foster's Thor, and we get this lame villain played by Christian Bale, who's a terrific, brilliant actor, but I did not care for this god killer, dude, is just this like white powdered guy. Like, I don't know. I was just like,
we know Marvel has an issue with casting really great actors in really bad villain roles in a lot of cases. And Thor, like in a lot of the Thor movies too, it's always a huge problem.
Yeah, a lot of these movies, whatever that is, if it's Batman, Thor, whatever it is, James Bond, the movies are always, usually they're as good as the villains. Was that a good movie? Well, yes, because Alan Rickman was the bad guy, or because Malcolm McDowell was the bad guy, or whoever is a great bad guy. Michael Wincott is a personal favorite, but anyway, whoever's an awesome bad guy, well, usually they can make the film work. Christian Bale, great actor, but I didn't think he was a great character. I didn't like his character. I didn't like what they were doing, and it was just bland to me. I found myself looking at my phone watching this movie, you know, and I don't do that very often, as tempting as it is watching from home, right? But I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, get to the next scene. And I love Taika Waititi. Like I said, I love the beginning when Korg is telling the story of Thor and how they beat Thanos and he was fat Thor and now he's back to thin, and that's great. That's wonderful to pick everything up from Avengers Endgame. That was a nice, you know, beginning. But from there, it just went straight downhill for me. And anyway, later I'll think of worse movies, but that's the miss for now. Is Love and
I think
Thunder.
there was too many jokes in it. It became all jokey, and it was like fire joke,
Lame
joke,
ending,
joke,
too.
joke, joke, and you couldn't like get a breath. And there was like no character development because it was just all about what's his next one liner going to be, and it was too much. And I like Christian Bale as that villain. I actually thought that villain was great, but there wasn't enough of him, and apparently they cut a lot of it out that would really build his character to put more jokes in.
So he was so overly dark, and it was such that's a heartbreaking story with him and his whole motive. But then he's such a dark, it could be great character in a comedy movie, you know?
It was too much comedy, like way too much. Like it
felt like it was a lot of like deleted scenes from Ragnarok almost, you know, like they're kind of recycling a lot of jokes and they're using a lot of jokes, and that's the stuff that could have been cut from Ragnarok ended up in this, I think. Like it just, it didn't hit. I agree.
I'm almost starting to think Thor is a better secondary character and not as much a lead. Like, you know, he's great as a side character people can bounce off of, but I don't know about a lead anymore. I don't know. Like it could have just been that movie, but
I totally agree with you. And to me, my favorite Thor moments were the ones where he was with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, like when he was with them on their that was good Thor. I thought him playing off of Peter Quill and Peter Quill playing off of him. I just
oblivious to the world. That's the best. That's the funniest part of Thor. He's just oblivious to what he does.
Yeah, but you're right. I don't think that he's a strong lead character, which is I think why they haven't made a standalone Hulk movie, because Hulk isn't a lead character. Like just because he's one of the Avengers doesn't mean he's great. I mean,
he's great in small doses. Yep, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
I swear they just seem to rely on Chris Hemsworth's six-pack in all these Thor movies. There's this stupid scene, right, where Russell Crowe, what was he, Zeus? Yeah,
Zeus,
and he flicks his clothes off. It's like, come on. Yeah. Like this is obviously just for the Chris
fan
Hemsworth,
service.
Just so people can make memes and posters of half-naked Chris Hemsworth. No thanks.
Yeah, Thor was definitely one of my bottom. I struggle with two of them. I'm going to mention one, and then the other one will be mentioned after we talk. I'm going to go Morbius. I'll go Morbius.
The easy pick.
They're equal. The two of them. I'm going to mention the other one after. But
I knew there was something worse.
Lawrence will probably know which one I'm going to say is the other one. But the Morbius was terrible. It was just uninspired. It was like a character no one really cares about. That would have been a good hour special.
Yes.
Like that's a perfect example of something. It was just boring. It was like, I didn't understand it. Like, it was like, almost like, I can't remember who plays the lead, Jared Leto. He's like in a different movie than everybody else. Like it's like,
he's in a different world than everybody else at all times.
He's always in a different world.
Yeah. His overcommitment to these characters is just ridiculous.
I just thought it was boring. Like Matt Smith was misused. Everything in it was misused. And it just wasn't fun. There was not even like an ounce of fun in that movie. And it just bored me, the entire thing. It was uninspired. It was just terrible. I walked away going, what is this? Like, what, this is bad for a Marvel movie too. And I know it's a Sony one, but it's still, their movies have been fairly decent. Like this one was just not necessary at all, unless it's going to factor into some larger picture for Spider-Man or something, but major thumbs down.
You have to assume he's coming back. Like they rarely introduce a character unless he or she is going to appear in a group film at some point. So he's coming
unless
back,
the movie bombs.
Oh yeah. Although I think you're right. That would have been a perfect 1 hour special. Like that would have been awesome. Like to condense this whole story into an hour long on Disney Plus on TV that you can watch. I think that would have been a great way to do it, and then people would have been intrigued and would have wanted to see more of it. But
it could have been animated. Like it could have been. DC does such a great job at animated, not quite feature length movies that are just one-offs or even story builders, that kind of thing. It could have been a great Disney Plus. Well, I guess it's Sony, right? So it's not Disney Plus, but it could have been a great animated slide it somewhere during the holidays or something like that. Here's a story of Morbius. Not that you really care, you know, that kind of thing. It's a little background.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, Larry, what do you got?
Okay, so this is going to be super controversial,
Oh no.
but as my miss this year, I put The Northman.
Wow.
Yeah,
What?
I'm a big Dave Eggers fan. I love The Witch. The Witch is one of my favorite horror movies. I loved The Lighthouse. I thought so. I was super stoked, and when I heard, because his level of realism is what makes his movies so good, and his commitment to authenticity. And so when I heard he was doing one about Vikings, I'm like, this is gonna be outstanding. Like Dave, it's the oddest thing, because I've been thinking about this since I saw it, and like why it was that I didn't connect with it, and I honestly can't tell you. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was um Alexander Sarsgaard. I think that might have been part of it. I didn't, for some reason, even though I mean he's sort of perfectly suited to play a Viking, for whatever reason I somehow didn't connect with him, and because of that, because he was the lead, I just, the whole thing sort of fell a bit flat for me. I came out of it thinking, oh, well, none of it really surprised me. None of it. I mean, it looked beautiful, like you said. Visually, I think it was stunning. But I don't know. I almost wish the whole thing had been in a different language and subtitled. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that would have added a level of more of a level of realism to it, or so. I don't know. I honestly can't even tell you. But for whatever reason, and maybe I overhyped it in my head. I don't know. The other thing is, maybe I should go back and rewatch it. Maybe it was that I just missed the point when I saw it, but for whatever reason, that one kind of let me down, and I feel bad about it. I don't want it to let me down, because I love Vikings. I love that era, and I think it was so cool, and I love Dave Eggers, and I
have to make a correction. I planted the seed of Dave Eggers. It's Robert Eggers. Dave Eggers
is
a writer, but I said Dave Eggers earlier with The Northman, but yeah, Robert Eggers is the guy.
Robert Eggers. Yes, I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah. So so I feel it's kind of, I feel like the way I do about the Mike Flanagan the Midnight Club.
Misstep. Yep.
it's for me, it was just a little bit of a misstep. Like I see what he was trying to do, but for me personally, it didn't connect. So it was not that it was the terrible movie. It just was a miss for me, because I was expecting a lot more, I guess.
Yeah.
So there it is.
Controversial.
And now Ben is so offended he's left.
He's just stepped aside.
He couldn't handle us anymore.
I'm here. It's all right. I'm here.
Okay.
No,
What's going on? Okay, my miss was one that I really wanted to like so bad, but Jurassic World Dominion. I'm so peeved at the filmmakers for making locusts the main part of a dinosaur movie. Like, it was the most ridiculous. What a waste of everything that you can do. There's so much that they have spent going to bringing dinosaurs into the real world, and like they teased that with Fallen Kingdom, and I didn't love Fallen Kingdom, but it had some good parts. I thought it was a better like haunted house kind of horror-y sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then when the end of that is like, wow, what are they going to do with this? We had the little teaser video at a campsite that he released like 2 years ago. Yeah. We see the T-Rex at the drive-in theater and all that. I love all of that stuff. But then it's like, yeah, let's go science-y with locusts.
I didn't even think of that when I watched it. That's hilarious.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah, it just bugged me. I liked they obviously teasing with old cast and new cast was great. They did play well off each other. I liked that dynamic between everybody. But again, it was like when they're escaping, they're in this tower and there's some exciting moments, but there's a lot of downtime for a movie featuring freaking dinosaurs. And this is the 6th time we've done this now. Let's, we should have this formula kind of figured out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did like the first 45 minutes that felt like Mission Impossible with
it sure did.
I was like, this is wild. They're like full on Mission Impossible here, riding motorcycles through European cities. This is awesome.
Yeah. If only they could have kept that going, that trajectory.
Yeah, if they kept it all the way
Nope.
through, I'd have been on it.
So let's just open up for just kind of fire out some other misses this year. Anybody wants to throw them out, you can go right ahead.
Well, I do have one more, just one. And it was Black Adam. I was not a fan of Black Adam. I wasn't actually going to go see it because the trailers turned me off. It looked to me like a knockoff Marvel movie and featuring The Rock. And I don't mind The Rock, but he's not a draw for me. And so that wasn't a thing. But I thought, I'll go see it. I'm a DC guy. I like DC, so I'll go see it. And it to me, it felt like DC. First of all, DC's all over the board. Like the Batman this year was phenomenal. Joker was phenomenal. I'm like, keep it in that vein. And then Black Adam was literally a Marvel movie. I'm like, this doesn't fit with anything that they're trying to do. And so it felt confusing and it felt out of place. And it felt like a Marvel movie that I didn't really need to see to me.
And I mean, who really thought, but it did happen that Black Adam actually killed Superman. What? Cancel Superman after this. What happened?
Yeah, exactly.
Killed his career, I guess.
Yeah.
No,
unreal.
But just killed his that was really unfortunate. Yeah, that they built that up and he's back. And oh no, we're going with the younger Superman. So he's not back.
No.
That was very unfortunate.
I
gotta disagree with you though, Larry. I gotta disagree about
I knew this was happening. Yeah, I knew this would happen.
There we go.
Bring it on.
So it's not. I'm not going to say Black Adam is like the best movie in the world, but it was good. I liked it because I've been saying for like 10 years that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson should be cast as Black Adam, and they kept saying in Hollywood that he was going to play Shazam. He was going to play, the original Captain Marvel. But thank God they didn't do that. So he is Black Adam. So that's perfect casting in my book. I know a lot of people are tired of Dwayne Johnson. He's friggin' everywhere, I know, but what I loved about that movie, though, was the fact that they did do these two characters, Black Adam, three of them actually, Black Adam, Hawkman, and Dr. Fate, are three characters that were created before almost all of the Marvel characters. So it's kind of funny because I understand what Larry's saying about the movie, like the way that the audience will look at this movie based on the movie world of all these Marvel movies and DC movies that are out there. And if you do a comparison that way, it seems like a non-DC movie kind of, but for me, it's like a great adaptation of the Justice Society of America and the Black Adam story, which is, an anti-hero. He's a killer. He's not Superman. He's not Shazam. He's not supposed to be likable that way. He's more of a, dare I say, like a Punisher kind of a character, because he's out for revenge. It's all about revenge for him after the death of his son and everything. I thought Pierce Brosnan was perfect as Dr. Fate as well, and that's another character I have loved forever. So I liked it based on that. I didn't think it was, a 10 out of 10, but I thought it was good, and that's why. And same with the Northman. You know why I like the Northman. But, one last thing I wanted to say about that, though, Larry, is that that's perfectly like normal, natural, cool, that sometimes you watch a movie and you're like, well, if it's a movie about this, about revenge, we want to really love that character who gets screwed over, that's after the revenge. Sometimes it doesn't really matter because in this case, he's a brutal Viking who's like been this horrible person raised by these raiders that are these killers. Like, everybody's a killer. This is a brutal time. So to kind of think that he might be like a kind of a nice guy or a relatable character, it didn't really matter to me too much. So I still love the intensity of the character, knowing full well that he's, an idiot, and he learns that kind of lesson that revenge just leaves you with, more pain, more death. So anyway, I just had to throw that in there.
I feel like I should rewatch it. I feel like maybe I didn't give it the time and the effort that I should have put into it. So I'm gonna put that one back on my list.
Okay, all right, check it out again.
See how it goes.
I just want to throw out the Munsters out there. That was the other one.
Oh yeah. Oh my.
I like the Munsters TV show. It's funny. We talked about it on our show like a few episodes ago, but I think Rob Zombie loves the Munsters, and you could see it in the sets. You could see it in the costumes. The movie was just not funny, and I don't know what it was supposed to it was trying to be, but it was not funny. It was just a dud. Like, it was a complete dud. Other than his visual, like his eye for what the original show was, I thought that was good, but it was just, there wasn't enough there for me to like, and I just was like, I walked away almost angry after I watched it. I was just like, this is stupid. Like, just, I actually had to watch the real Munster just to kind of like, get that out
Cleanse
of
the
my head.
palate. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was like,
Yeah.
because that's actually, and it was funnier than the whole movie was. But
I had a similar and very minor. It wasn't necessarily worth bringing up, but The Bubble. I don't know if any of you guys saw it. Judd Apatow's movie about making a movie during the pandemic.
I didn't watch it because I heard it was horrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And as a big comedy fan and huge Judd Apatow fan, it was the most laugh-free comedy I've ever seen. Everything was so on the nose. It was so blunt and ridiculous. Like it was such a shame because again, Judd Apatow has made some of the best movies out there.
Yeah.
And then this one was just it. I don't know what it was, whether it was a cash in or whether it was like, let's get my friends a job or what it was, but it was brutal.
My friend's a job.
All right, we'll take that one right off the list.
Yeah, that's off the list. Well, let's move on to our open category. Let's keep things moving and we'll go to our hits. I'm not going to do an open one after this. So this is your chance to throw out your, what you think of the year.
Yep.
So we'll start with Ben.
This one was a late 2021 release that I only got into, but it took up almost my entire 2022. It's a video game called Disco Elysium. I don't know if you guys have heard anything about it. It was the name alone that actually got me kind of intrigued. It is it's an RPG. It's available on most platforms. I got it on the Switch. It uses the mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons in that a lot of it is a roll of the dice on whether something's going to work or not. But you play a detective in this fictional world. It's grounded mostly in reality, except you wake up from a hangover. You don't know where you are. You don't know what your case is. You don't know anything aside from the fact that you are battling with yourself internally. So you have like 16 different aspects of your own brain that you keep fighting with. It's so hard to explain.
Oh, that's cool.
You start off as like, what kind of a detective do you want to be? So they give you some, like, there's points based, obviously it's a lot of experience in different sections. You can be like, there's like the sensitive. So you're empathetic. You are able to speak with people. You've got all these sort of things. You could be a brute where you're just a lot more blunt and you would be prone to violence, although there's no action in this game. It's all dialogue based. It blew me away, and it is like 100 out of 10 kind of game that it got me in the middle of the night. I was thinking about the case and felt like I was losing my own mind because in the game, that's what you're doing. You're trying to piece together your own life and what has been happening, and then also solve this case that's going on. I cannot recommend it enough. I know that I'm doing it no justice in explaining it because it seems so convoluted.
It sounds cool to me.
It was absolutely incredible. And I mean, I think I got it for like $12. It was on sale on the eShop on Nintendo. And if you see it, you come across it, the voice acting in it. So the reason it's actually an older game, it's a game from like 2019, but they released a new update where all the dialogue had been recorded by people. And the dialogue is amazing. Your inner thoughts that are kind of guiding you through the whole thing is this like really low, growly guy that's speaking to you and narrating the whole thing for you. It's an incredible experience.
How have you finished it?
No, I'm so close. I probably put in 40 hours or so into it. But it's also a game that when you finish it, even though there's the mystery of what the case is, there are 1,000 different ways to get there. And there's, you can play as a different kind of cop. You can take totally different routes in doing all this. It's a very basic, the graphics are super basic, but the art in it is incredible. Like they use watercolor paintings all over the place. And it's an incredible, incredible thing. I cannot recommend it enough.
Awesome. Disco Elysium.
Disco Elysium. Yep.
All right. Okay.
That's awesome.
Cool. Something I've never heard of. That's nice. I like
awesome.
My hit for the year, and I think we might have mentioned this a couple years ago, but I think it's still like relevant today, is the horror genre in general for
what a time to be a horror fan.
And it's not just all, I mean, you've got your slashers, you got your things like that, but it's just the way horror's thought out lately is just like from like Men, from like I'm trying to think of some other ones, Black Phone, like Terrifier 2, like
Oh, man.
Smile, like Barbarian. It just goes on and on. The list of great horror movies this year, and even like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I was like thoroughly enjoyed the entire thing. Like I loved, like I just like it was just great. Like a year to be a horror fan. Like
Men
generally,
was a sleeper. I really liked Men. I thought that was like, it was a, man, I didn't know if I had accidentally ingested a ton of drugs as that movie kind of was wrapping up,
weird.
but yeah,
Don't
but
spoil anything. I'm really, really excited to see this movie.
Yeah.
It's on my, so don't spoil anything.
No spoilers. No, I promise. But it was really, it starts off as a slow burn. And then as you kind of figure out what's happening, it was brilliant. It was really, really well done.
Yeah. Awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. Horror is the genre to follow nowadays. They've finally gotten it.
Yeah.
Finally,
took them long enough. Yeah.
Horror's always been fun, but now they've got a formula that they nailed it. I agree.
Yeah, you just don't know what to expect from it anymore. It used to be like it's either a slasher or this, but it's all psychological. There's like it's just the imagery, like everything's all over the place. So it's like it's so good. It's just so well done. But Larry, what you got for your hit of the year?
So my hit of the year was 2022 was the 50th anniversary of Atari. So everything Atari was back in vogue this year, and which is like so exciting for me because I grew up with Atari. I bought my Atari when I was 12 years old, with 7 games or something like that off a buddy who was in grade 7 with me, and he sold it all to me for $70, and it was so exciting. And I still have it. And I've always loved Atari, and I just the fact that it's now celebrated its 50th. They just released a new game called Atari 50, which has it's a collection of old games, but the way it's presented with interviews from some of the creators, and some of the home screens are actually games. Like it's just a brilliant presentation. They've also for just recently, my wife gave me it's sort of like an emulator called the Retron 77, which is which plays the original Atari 2600 cartridges. So just this year I was able to play my original ET games. I've actually got a bunch of them sitting beside me right now. They're all sitting right here.
Combat's awesome.
Here's Space Invaders. They're all just sitting beside me. To cap it all off, this year I went to a Comic-Con called RetroCon in Hamilton, and one of the guests that they had there was Warren Robinett, who is literally the father of adventure games. He was the one who solely by himself created the Atari 2600 game called Adventure, which if you saw Ready Player One, the movie Ready Player One was heavily featured because it's the very first video game to ever have an Easter egg. He hid his own name in the game because Atari wasn't giving any credit to creators, and he was like, screw that. I'm putting my own name in, but you had to do a series of things in order to get into this room where you could see his name. So it was literally the very first Easter egg in a game, and it was the first literally adventure game. It was like a non-linear, you had to search for objects in order to open castles and find keys and things like that. And he was there, so I got to meet him, and I got him to autograph my copy
your
of
chest.
Yeah, my forehead.
Perfect.
So to me, this year was all about Atari and the 50th anniversary of Atari, and that was a big milestone in my life right there.
That's awesome. What about you, Neil?
So just like London, Ottawa's a great place for conventions. So I know Larry was just talking about conventions. I went to a whole bunch of conventions this year for about a half hour to an hour at most before my pain started kicking in.
Yeah.
And I had to get in the car and get the hell out of there. But for what I was able to do, and for what the guests were able to do as well, it was amazing. I was so happy. I was able to interview about 6 or 7 people this year at different conventions, some of which are our favorite voice actors. Of course, I'm always interviewing voice actors, as Greg and I used to do that on the radio quite often. And one of them was Maurice LaMarche, Canadian actor from Futurama. And he's the brain on Pinky and the Brain. He's the original Egon Spengler on The Real Ghostbusters. He's the chief on Inspector Gadget. He was, he's a million voices. million voices for Maurice. He was a great guy, and I got to interview him. And then I got to interview Rob Paulson. So I got to interview
The best. Yeah.
Pinky.
He's always such a good interview. Yep.
Yeah, actually, the first time I interviewed him was with Backstage Ben, actually, and Greg. Shout out to Greg in PEI.
That's right.
I got to interview also John Stalker from so many cartoons growing up, Cops and Care Bears and Droids and so on. And I also got to interview Robert Boxstall, who was the voice of RoboCop, the animated series. If you remember, just like Rambo, they made a RoboCop cartoon for some reason. It's a rated R movie. That's marketed to kids, the cartoon was not as bloody, but it was really interesting talking to him and getting stories about working on shows like X-Men and Teddy Ruxpin and all these shows like that. And he wrote a book too called Willow's Run, and I got to promote that for him. So this is all going on with my good friend Kara, who I love dearly. Shout out to Kara. She was my camera person the whole time as well. And we just had a blast. And even though I couldn't last long, after an hour or two, I'm like, okay, I need some water, medic. But yeah, I'm very thankful for that. And it was a big hit for me to be able to do these interviews, especially since I'm not media anymore. I don't have a media badge. I'm not a media staff guy like you guys anymore. I'm not, I never was really. I was a volunteer for Bell. And yet here I am. I'm still getting to do it and still thankful for all the experience that I got volunteering for Bell with Greg and Fanshawe and all that stuff, because it allowed me to know what I'm doing and how to make a good interview instead of just be a fanboy. I loved you in that movie. I loved you in this movie, real questions, and real, not just your own opinions, but, and I've gotten so good at it, thanks to Greg and thanks to Fanshawe, and thanks to all these actors that I've been able to meet and interview. So that's a big hit for me, considering I've been, injured for most of this year, that I was able to do that. So thanks to the actors, thanks to my good friend Kara, and thanks to the Lord.
Whether you're in media or not, we all just fake it until we make it anyway. So
exactly.
You're fine. You can keep going.
Yeah. You can't tell I'm in pain when I'm interviewing them, but inside I'm like, kill me.
Yeah.
So I did a good job acting. But anyway, I'm very, very, very thankful for that. That was definitely a big hit of the year for me.
All right. Well, Ben, let's kick off the misses this year. What was a big miss this year, you thought?
So my big miss was, and it's related to some of the misses that we've talked about, but my big miss is doing the ironic boosting of crappy products. So we saw Morbius coming back to theaters as a campaign online. Sony really thought that they had hit something by bringing Morbius back. The TikTok trend of teens dressing up in suits to go see Minions, and Minions making way more money than it probably should have. I just found this weird ironic love of crappy IPs as a weird thing that was going on this year. And I just, I think that it kind of burst to an extent now that we're seeing so many cancellations. That's kind of the other thing, was the amount of content that we have. We've got so many things that do we need more? We just see the Workaholics movie has just been canceled. And I was like, why are they making a Workaholics movie? The show got canceled. Why are we bringing it back? It was fine. It was good for its time, but all that sort of thing. So just for me, it was almost an overload of content was kind of the issue, where we've seen a lot of great stuff, but I just hope that the cash in and the laziness doesn't continue, just in order to either try to, let's hope that this is let's hope that this becomes a TikTok trend and we end up making $1 billion on this horrible movie that we just kind of cashed in on,
Yeah. Oh, for sure. The for me, it was the why they put Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, and House of the Dragons out at the same time.
I know.
This is a very specific
nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, I know they have nothing to do with each other, but they're very specific, sort of genre, and they're both super epic. They both cost a lot of money. So let's put them out at the same time. I honestly got a little confused watching both at once. It was, they're told different things. I was like, what was I watching? Where's the Hobbits and House of Dragons? I couldn't I was really getting there's too much. It's they kind of look the same. Except obviously there's a bit more style in Rings of Power. It's much more fantasy looking, but I don't know why they decided to put both of them out at the same time. It just seemed weird to me.
And considering they both draw from the same audience base, why not?
That's the thing. Yeah.
That didn't make any sense to me. Why they didn't separate them? It was 10 weeks of one, then that stops, then give you another 10 weeks. It just, you would have, I just feel like people's attention was split, and maybe didn't watch one or the other during its initial run because
I would have enjoyed Rings of Power much better had the
Yes.
other one not be on.
Yes.
Like because I really got into House of Dragon, but then this seemed like an extra thing I had to watch rather than being the thing I had to watch. And I love Lord of the Rings. I love those movies so much. I really struggled getting into it at first because it was too much like of that genre for me, like all at the same time.
And part of the thing with the Rings of Power was that each episode was really long, like an hour and 10 minutes. Like they were quite long. So if that had been the only thing you had to watch, an hour and 10 minutes would have been perfect. But then you had another hour of House of Dragons on top of that, and it becomes daunting. So yeah, I've actually recommended to people. I've had this conversation with a few people and who haven't watched either of them yet, and I've said, don't finish one and then start the other. Like, don't watch them simultaneously. Like, it's not a good idea.
That's good advice, Larry. Actually, but the thing that I don't get is like, why they're in the same conversation at all? Because I know they're both fantasies, but one's for adults only, and one's for everyone. Because everyone can watch Rings of Power. There's nothing scary. There's no brutal violence, sex, blood. Obviously, House of the Dragon is pretty darn bloody. The first episode especially, it's pretty nasty, right, with the birth and everything. And there's all this brutal violence and dragon on dragon violence, and stuff like that. But it's so dark too. Like House of the Dragon is so dark. So there's a few episodes where you're like, what's going on? I need to turn the brightness up on my TV because it's so dark. And then where with Rings of Power, it's totally different. They it's so like bright and green and beautiful colors, and for the most part, right? So they're very different, very, very different shows in many ways. To me, it's apples and oranges, but I guess because
not to everybody.
I don't think so. I think I mean, I know they're different and they look kind of different when you look at them, but they're two multi-million-dollar shows of sort of the same fantasy genre at the same time. And it's split like one. I just didn't enjoy one over the other because I was kind of watching one, but everybody I knew was watching House of Dragon more than they were the other. So I ended up talking about House of Dragon a lot more with like people I knew, and the other one just sort of got shoved aside, and it wasn't any fault of it. It was I only can watch so much of that sort of genre. Like it became sort of the same thing to me. Like after a while, I know what you're saying. I thought they were very similar just because of the genre they were.
This is when they released Volcano and Dante's Peak in the same year. Yes. It's the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing. I can't watch two Volcano movies. Oh, that's hilarious. Who hasn't gone yet? I can't remember now. Neil hasn't gone yet.
Can we get more robocalls?
Oh,
I've had, I don't know about you guys, but I've had more robo recording calls this year than ever in my life. And it's just like, it doesn't ever stop. I know. You just don't answer and you hit block or whatever. It's no big deal, but it just seems to increase. Misinformation can be worse than just annoying. So yeah,
the Border Patrol's still coming to my house. They're on their way. Apparently. So I don't know why
the IRS cares so much about my bank account, but they should.
Yeah, really. I've got all these packages waiting for me.
Well, Larry, what's your miss of the year?
I've got a quick one here. My miss of this year was canceling shows that I really like that aren't finished. And it happened a couple of times this year. I know I'm not great at finishing shows, but there are some shows that I would really like to finish and now I can't. So it happened twice. The first one was Westworld, which I love.
Oh yeah.
I love Westworld. I think it's one of the greatest shows ever. Season 4 just finished. And it was done, and we were like, great. Apparently, they only wanted one more season to wrap up this whole thing. I was super excited, and then they canceled it. Not only did they cancel it, but within like 2 weeks, they pulled it from HBO Max HBO Max. Like they pulled it off the site.
In Canada, though, I think we're lucky enough that it's still on Crave. I believe.
Is it still on Crave?
Yeah,
because I still have 4 episodes to go. Like I hadn't finished the season.
Yeah.
I had 4 episodes and I heard that it was gone. I haven't looked, so now I'm gonna look. So I was really annoyed. I was like, come on, like we've been 4 years into this thing. It was great. Like I don't think it lost any of its momentum. I thought the story was strong this year. I don't know why they canceled it. I haven't found out, but that really annoyed me. So that happened. And then show called 1899. I don't know if any of you have watched
I've
1899.
heard of it.
I just started getting into that, and it's really weird, and it's like underwater sunken weird mysteries. It's kind of cool. And
Bermuda
then,
Triangle kind of related,
yeah,
isn't it?
sorry,
Yeah.
it's Bermuda Triangle sort of thing. And I was so into it, and then I just heard it was canceled too.
Yeah.
And so now, do I finish this season? I don't know. I want to, but I know that there's not going to be an ending for me. So, like
That's, I mean, that's kind of going back to what I was saying too. Like they're so quick to approve and then also cancel things. Like
Yeah.
there was a show, and I hadn't watched it, but the news right now, there's an animated show on Netflix called Inside Job.
Oh,
and they announced a few weeks ago that they're renewing it for season 2. And then just yesterday, they're like, nah, never mind, we're canceling it. So like after they're really wiping, and again, like the Workaholics, as much as I really enjoyed that show like 10 years ago, I don't know that they needed a movie, but everything was set. They're like weeks away from starting to film, and they canceled it. We're seeing it cancel, like Henry Cavill leaving The Witcher to become Superman. That was a big deal. And then he's no longer Superman because they're changing their minds so much. It's almost like this constant news cycle now. Every decision is being broadcast, even if it maybe not the final decision.
Yeah, they just need to stop. Like, just wait until like things have actually started rolling, or you know what I mean? Like, don't tell us. If we don't know, then we don't know. But yeah, you can't tease us like that. Like it'll just build animosity. People won't want to see these shows or these movies because they're just angry. You know, I totally agree.
Let's move on to geeky things you're looking forward to in 2020. It could be a movie, it could be a TV show, whatever it is. We'll keep it tight just because we've been here for 8 hours already. That's
2023, right? We're not looking
2020. This is for 2023. Looking forward to it.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll start out with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Nice. I love Indiana Jones. The last movie was terrible. I'm hoping this one they're going to get back on track, and the trailer looked really good, and I couldn't say that when I saw the trailer for the last one. So I think this one might actually be not bad. I think it looks kind of cool.
It had promise, but obviously, like they know what they did.
Yeah, they did. Hopefully they're not going to nuke
mistakes.
the fridge again. So
yeah.
I think it's the end of Indiana Jones, regardless, right? I mean,
it is.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to make any more, even if it's great.
No, but it doesn't matter. Like, I don't need any more if it's great. Like, I didn't really need any more after 3. You know, I didn't need any more. I didn't ask for more. So if this one's great, then end it. Like, just call it a day. And apparently Mutt Lang not Mutt Lang, Mutt whatever is not in this one.
Shia, they explained. Apparently, they explained him away. I guess. Yeah.
So already it's better.
Yeah.
No CGI gophers.
No.
Or monkeys.
Please. So dumb. Neil, what about you? What's something you're looking forward to in 2023?
Dune Part 2.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, all of us book fans have been waiting for them to do Dune well for so long. And as we know, it was a good try in the 80s, but it was, a swing and a miss. But really, Part 1, and we didn't even know it was Part 1, or at least the world didn't know it was, but we figured it would be. If they were going to do the first book justice, they had to split it into 2 books. So, yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah,
obviously, the last movie left off with Paul and his mother in the sand dunes, connecting with the sand people and all that, and it just looks like I can't wait to see how they finish this story, and how they take back what's theirs, and and all that stuff. So if you know the story, you already know how it's going to go, but you just can't wait to see it adapted. I can't wait to see how they finish this and execute it. So yeah,
I watched the David Lynch Cole's Notes version, so I know everything that happens.
The Alan Smithy version.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Ben, what about you?
June 2nd, 2023. I have never looked so forward to a movie as I am looking forward to Spider-Man Across the Universe, or the Spider-Verse, I should say. That the first one still blows me away every time I watch it. I've probably seen it more than any other movie. I went with my kids to see it in theaters, and now a few years later, we're all excited for it. It rarely has a movie affected me the way that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse did. I adored it, and I still do. And like I said, I've just never been so excited to go and see something else. The trailers have been amazing. All the little teasers that they're putting in there. I mean, this is like, again, we're talking multiverse, so this is a lot of characters, a lot of Easter eggs, and I was a Spider-Man huge webhead as a kid. Well, he'll come back. Oh, there he is. I'm so looking forward to it, and I am so confident that it's going to be just as good, if not better. They can't possibly go wrong. I'm so excited for this movie.
Now,
it looks amazing.
Having said that, let me just say, I've said that several times about they cannot go wrong. It's
yes.
It doesn't always work out that way.
Okay.
Just putting it out there.
Okay.
We'll see next year what you have to say about it. But anyway.
All right, Larry, what about you?
Okay, well, I was going to say Indiana Jones as well, but you've already taken that one. So I have a new one. Just today, the day that we recorded this on January 10th, the new trailer for Ari Aster's new film, Beau is Afraid, dropped. Ari Aster was the director of Hereditary and Midsommar, both of which are like in my top, I'd say my top 10 horror movies of all. I love both of them. Midsommar was just mind-blowing to me, and still is. So he's only done the 2 movies, so his run is like, he's like batting 1,000 so far for me. So he's got a new movie coming out in April called Beau is Afraid, and it stars Joaquin Phoenix in various stages of his life. So he's a young kid, he's an elderly man, he's apparently, it's just like, I don't even know all that much about it, but the trailer came out today and it's
weird.
It's weird, yeah.
And it just it almost looks lighter. I mean, Hereditary and Midsommar were not fun. I mean, there was nothing fun about them. Like, they were not.
The laws of science say that it has to be lighter than either one of those.
Exactly. And it looks like it is. However, it's also playing off of his darkest fears, it says in the trailer. So that can't be good. No. So I don't know if their trailer is making it look lighter to draw people in, or I don't know. But whatever Ari Aster does, I will go and see.
And some of the captions I've seen today are talking about how it's a comedy, like maybe a dark comedy. I feel like it's like Charlie Kaufman-esque, like it's kind of got that super surrealist vibe, which the trailer certainly has in a lot of ways. But totally does. Whether it's going to be a dark comedy, I don't know that it's going to go full on horror or just incredibly uncomfortable the whole time, or how he's going to do it.
I don't, because it doesn't look like horror. Like, the trailer didn't make it look like. I mean, Hereditary is full on horror. I mean, Midsommar was pretty full on horror.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This trailer does not look like that. So it's cool that he's maybe departing a little bit from that darkness.
Yeah.
But maybe not, I don't know what to expect. I love Joaquin Phoenix. I think he's brilliant, and I feel like Joaquin Phoenix is one of those actors who chooses scripts very carefully, because he's very rarely, if ever, in a flop. So I feel like the fact that he's doing this says a lot about what it's going to be. So I'm super excited about that. April. They haven't given an exact date. I think it's sometime in April.
He's no Jared Leto, that's for sure.
Thank God for that. Yeah, we don't need another one of him.
He's like the light version of him. Like, you can't get Joaquin Phoenix to get him, basically. Well, I think that wraps everything up. I'll keep it quick here, and I want to thank you guys for once again joining us for our year-end review. I think it's been awesome to have you here and to get your perspectives on everything that went on in 2022. That's awesome. And that's it for the show. Thank you, everybody, for watching this. And everyone's going to be making new lists now of things they need to see that they didn't see in 2022. So thank you, everybody, so much. And I'm Loop.
And I'm Larry.
And that's the show. I'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Produced by Matthew C. Loop and Lawrence Simner. A Loop and Larry production.
Bueller.
He likes it. Hey, Mikey.
Bueller.
Bad news. Fog is getting thicker.
And Leon's getting larger.
Inconceivable.
Brian's right. It's an elf.
Wax on.
Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Oh, Captain, my captain.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Wax off.